Most people think education ends when school ends.
And honestly, that is exactly what so many people believe. They graduate, get a job, and suddenly they stop learning anything new, unless someone forces them to.
But here is the surprising truth. The people who grow the fastest in life are usually not the people with the best degrees. They are the people who keep teaching themselves every single day.
That is such a powerful idea, because it means your future is not locked. You do not have to stay the same person you are today.
Exactly. You can completely reinvent yourself just by changing what you feed your mind every day. 10 pages of a book, 1 podcast episode, 15 minutes of learning a skill. Those small actions seem tiny in the moment, but over a year, they can transform your confidence, your income, your relationships, and even the way you think.
And the crazy part is, most people underestimate how much they can change in 1 year.
They do. People often overestimate what they can do in 1 week, but underestimate what they can do in 1 year of consistent self-education.
So if you are watching this right now and you feel stuck, bored, behind in life, or like everyone else is moving faster than you, stay with us, because today we're going to talk about the real power of daily self-education and why it can completely change your life. And if you already believe in learning and growth, comment below with one thing you are currently trying to teach yourself. We would love to hear it.
And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe to Talk Easy Daily, because this channel is all about helping you grow your English, your mindset, and your life one conversation at a time.
Because by the end of this episode, you might never look at learning the same way again.
Let us start with something important. Most people think self-education means reading difficult books for hours every day.
Or watching boring lectures that feel like school all over again.
But real self-education is much simpler than that. It's the habit of intentionally learning something useful every day without waiting for someone else to tell you what to learn.
So it could be learning about money, communication, business, health, psychology, confidence, or even how to speak better English.
Exactly. It's about taking responsibility for your own growth, and that is where the real power begins.
Because when you depend only on school, teachers, or formal education, you're limited by what other people decide to teach you.
But when you educate yourself, you choose what matters most for your life.
That sounds freeing.
It is. Imagine 2 people who both finish university at the same age. One person stops learning completely. They do the same routine every day, watch random videos online, scroll social media for hours, and never challenge their mind.
And the other person spends just 30 minutes a day learning something useful.
Exactly. Maybe they read books about communication. Maybe they listen to podcasts about business. Maybe they study how successful people think. Maybe they improve their English every day.
At first, those 2 people probably look exactly the same.
Yes, in the first month, there is almost no visible difference. But after 1 year, the gap becomes huge. And after 5 years, they may seem like completely different people.
That is actually scary, because it means your daily habits quietly shape your future.
They do. Every day, you're either building yourself or staying the same. There is no neutral.
Wow, that line is powerful. Every day, you are either building yourself or staying the same.
And here is the interesting part. Self-education does not just give you knowledge, it changes the way you see yourself.
What do you mean?
Well, when you learn something new, you prove to yourself that you are capable of growth. You stop thinking, this is just who I am, and you start thinking, I can improve.
So instead of saying, I am bad at speaking English, you begin saying, I am still learning.
Exactly. That one shift changes everything, because people who believe they can grow become more confident, more motivated, and more resilient.
And people who think they can't change usually stay stuck.
Right. There is a huge difference between saying, I am not smart, and saying, I have not learned this yet.
That word yet is so important.
It's one of the most powerful words in personal growth, because it keeps the door open.
You know, I think one reason people avoid self-education is because they feel overwhelmed. There's so much information everywhere.
That is true. You can open your phone and suddenly see millions of videos, books, courses, podcasts, and opinions. It can make you feel lost.
So how do you know what to learn?
Start with one question. What is one area of your life that would improve everything else if you became better at it?
That's a really good question.
For some people, it's communication. For others, it's money management. For others, it's confidence, discipline, health, productivity, or emotional control.
Because if you improve one important area, it often creates a chain reaction.
Exactly. Imagine someone who learns how to communicate better.
Suddenly, they do better in job interviews, relationships, presentations, and daily conversations.
Or someone who learns about money. They stop wasting money, start saving, maybe start investing, and feel less stressed.
That's why self-education is so powerful. One skill can improve 10 parts of your life.
And you don't have to become an expert overnight.
Not at all. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to learn everything at once.
That never works.
No. They buy 5 books, start 3 courses, watch 20 videos, and then give up because it becomes too much.
I think a lot of viewers can relate to that.
The smarter approach is to focus on one topic at a time. Learn slowly, learn deeply. Give yourself time to absorb what you are learning.
So instead of trying to improve everything, choose one thing and stay with it for a while.
Exactly, because depth is more powerful than speed.
That reminds me of something interesting. Some of the most successful people in the world are obsessed with learning.
They are. Warren Buffett spends hours reading every day. Bill Gates reads constantly. Elon Musk learned about rockets mostly through reading books.
That is crazy when you think about it.
It is. These people understand something that many others ignore. Knowledge compounds.
Like money?
Exactly like money. Imagine you improve by just 1% every day. That sounds small, but over time, those tiny improvements grow into something massive.
So one book does not change your life, but 50 books might.
Right. One podcast episode may not make a huge difference, but listening every day for a year can completely change the way you think.
This is a great moment to ask viewers something. What is one book, podcast, or video that changed the way you think? Leave it in the comments because someone else might discover something life-changing from your recommendation.
And while you're commenting, hit the like button because it helps more people discover Talk Easy Daily and start investing in themselves too. Here's something most people never realize. The quality of your life is often connected to the quality of the information you consume.
That is such an important point.
Think about it. If you spend hours every day watching gossip, negativity, drama, and useless content, your mind becomes full of noise.
And eventually, that affects the way you think, speak, and act.
Exactly. But if you spend time learning useful ideas, your mind becomes sharper, calmer, and more focused.
So in a way, your mind is like a garden.
That is a perfect example. If you plant good seeds, you grow something valuable. But if you ignore it, weeds take over.
And social media can be dangerous because it often feels like learning, but sometimes it's just entertainment.
Very true. Watching motivational videos all day can make you feel productive, but if you never take action, nothing changes.
That's such a trap. You feel inspired for a few minutes, but your life stays the same.
Real self-education requires action. If you read about confidence, practice speaking up more. If you learn about money, create a budget. If you study communication, try using those skills in real conversations.
Because information without action is just entertainment.
Exactly. And action is what creates results.
You know what's interesting? A lot of people say they don't have time to learn.
Yes, but often that is not really true.
Because people can spend 2 hours scrolling social media without noticing.
Exactly. Most people don't need more time. They need to use their time differently.
Even 15 minutes a day can make a difference.
Absolutely. 15 minutes a day is more than 90 hours a year.
Wow. When you say it like that, it sounds huge.
Because it is huge. 90 hours is enough time to read several books, improve your English, learn a new skill, or completely change your mindset.
So the problem is not lack of time. It's lack of intention.
Exactly. And once you become intentional with your learning, your life starts to move in a different direction.
I think another reason people stop learning is because they are afraid of feeling stupid.
That is very true. Learning something new means being bad at it in the beginning. And nobody likes that feeling. No, but that feeling is actually a sign that you are growing. Every expert was once a beginner. Every confident speaker was once nervous. Every successful person once knew far less than they know today.
That is comforting because it reminds people that they do not need to be perfect to start.
Exactly. You just need to be willing to be a beginner for a while.
And honestly, there's something exciting about being a beginner.
There is. Beginners improve the fastest because everything is new. Every day feels like progress.
So if you have been waiting for the perfect moment to start learning something new, maybe this is your sign.
Maybe today is the day you finally start reading that book, listening to that podcast, taking that course, or practicing that skill.
Because 6 months from now, you will either wish you started today or wish you hadn't wasted more time.
And that is the truth. Time keeps moving whether you learn or not.
So you might as well become a stronger, smarter, more confident version of yourself along the way.
There's also something powerful about self-education that many people never talk about. It helps you become more independent.
How so?
Because when you learn how to find answers on your own, you stop depending on other people for everything.
That is true. Instead of always asking, what should I do, you start figuring things out yourself.
Exactly. And that builds confidence. You begin to trust yourself more because you know you can learn, adapt, and solve problems.
That is a really important skill in life because the world changes so fast now.
It does. Jobs change, technology changes, industries change, and the people who survive and succeed are usually the people who keep learning.
So self-education is not just a nice habit anymore. It's almost a survival skill.
I would say it absolutely is. In today's world, if you stop learning, you fall behind very quickly.
But the good news is that learning has never been easier.
Exactly. You can learn almost anything from your phone. You can watch videos, read books, take courses, listen to podcasts, and connect with experts from around the world.
Which means there are fewer excuses than ever before.
Right. The challenge is not access to information. The challenge is discipline.
That is so true.
You have to decide that your future matters more than temporary comfort.
Because it's easier to watch random videos than to read a book.
It is easier in the moment, but easier does not always mean better.
That is another powerful line.
The life you want is usually built by doing things that are harder now, but better later.
So reading, studying, practicing, and learning may not always feel exciting in the moment, but the rewards are incredible.
Exactly. Because every time you invest in yourself, you become someone with more value, more options, and more confidence.
And nobody can take that away from you.
That is one of the best things about self-education. Money can disappear, jobs can change, but what you know stays with you.
That is beautiful.
It is true. Knowledge becomes part of who you are.
And maybe that is why self-education feels so powerful. It's not just about learning facts, it's about becoming a better version of yourself.
Exactly. And that journey never really ends.
Which is actually exciting, because it means no matter how old you are, no matter where you come from, and no matter what mistakes you made in the past, you can always keep growing.
And that is the message we want every viewer to remember today. Your future is not fixed. You are not stuck. You are one new habit, one new book, one new idea, and one new decision away from changing your life.
And if this conversation inspired you, share it with someone who needs to hear it.
Because sometimes one idea can change the direction of someone's entire future.
And subscribe to Talk Easy Daily for more conversations that help you grow your English, your mindset, and your confidence.
In the next part, we are going to talk about the exact daily self-education habits that successful people use and how you can build your own learning routine without feeling overwhelmed. One of the biggest myths about self-education is that you need a perfect routine before you start.
That is so true. People think they need a beautiful desk, expensive books, a perfect schedule, and 3 free hours every day.
But in reality, the best learning routine is the one you can actually stick to.
So even if it's simple, it still works.
Exactly. A simple routine that you follow every day is much more powerful than a perfect routine that you quit after 3 days.
That's such an important reminder because people often make learning too complicated.
They do. And when something feels too complicated, it becomes easier to avoid.
So where should someone start if they want to build a daily self-education habit?
Start small, really small. Maybe 10 minutes of reading every morning. Maybe 1 podcast episode while driving to work. Maybe watching 1 educational video instead of scrolling social media for 30 minutes.
That sounds manageable.
It should feel manageable. The goal is not to impress yourself for one day. The goal is to create a habit that lasts for years.
I think a lot of people make the mistake of trying to change their entire life overnight.
Yes, and that usually leads to burnout. They get excited, do too much, and then give up because they can't keep it going.
That's why consistency matters more than intensity.
Exactly. Imagine someone reads 10 pages of a good book every day.
That doesn't sound like much.
But if the average book has about 300 pages, that means they finish 1 book every month.
Which means 12 books in a year.
Exactly. And 12 good books can completely change the way you think.
That's actually incredible because 10 pages feels so easy, but the long-term effect is huge.
That is the secret of daily self-education. Tiny actions repeated consistently create massive results.
It's kind of like exercise.
Exactly like exercise. You don't go to the gym once and suddenly become strong.
You become strong because you keep showing up.
And learning works the same way. You keep feeding your mind every day until one day you realize you are thinking differently, speaking differently, and making better decisions.
I think one reason people quit is because they don't see results fast enough.
That is a big reason. We live in a world where everyone wants instant results, but real growth is slow.
So you may not notice a huge difference after 1 week.
Probably not, but after 6 months you will. After 1 year, you definitely will.
That reminds me of planting a tree.
Exactly. When you plant a seed, nothing seems to happen at first, but under the ground, roots are growing.
And eventually the growth becomes visible.
Right. Self-education is like that. At first, you feel like nothing is changing, but slowly your mind becomes stronger, your ideas become clearer, and your confidence starts to grow.
That is such a good reminder for people who feel discouraged.
Because growth is often invisible before it becomes obvious.
Wow, that line is powerful too.
And here is another important habit successful learners use. They take notes.
Really?
Yes, because learning is not just about consuming information. It's about remembering it and using it.
That makes sense. You can watch 10 videos, but if you forget everything, nothing changes.
Exactly. Taking notes forces your brain to slow down and think more deeply.
So even writing down 1 or 2 important ideas can make a big difference.
Absolutely. Some people keep a notebook, some people use their phone, some people write in the margins of books.
The method doesn't matter as much as the habit.
Exactly. The key is to capture useful ideas before you forget them.
And I think there's something satisfying about looking back at your notes and seeing how much you have learned.
There is. It reminds you that you are growing, even when you don't feel it.
You know what else is important? Choosing the right sources.
Definitely. Not all information is valuable.
That is especially true online because anyone can say anything.
Exactly. One person says one thing, another person says the opposite, and suddenly you don't know what to believe.
So how do you avoid bad information?
Try to learn from people who have real experience, real results, and a good reputation.
So if you want to learn about money, listen to people who are financially successful.
Right. If you want to learn about communication, learn from great speakers. If you want to learn about health, learn from experts with evidence, not random opinions.
That is such a good point because sometimes the loudest people are not the smartest people.
Exactly. And one of the smartest things you can do is protect your mind from bad information.
Because bad advice can waste years of your life.
It can. That's why you should be careful about who you listen to.
I think another smart habit is reviewing what you learn.
Yes, because repetition helps information stay in your memory.
So instead of always chasing new information, sometimes it's better to go back and review old ideas.
Exactly. People often think learning means constantly finding something new. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is revisit something important until it becomes part of your life.
That is true. There are some lessons you need to hear more than once.
Definitely. You can read the same book twice and notice completely different things because you are a different person each time you read it.
That is actually so interesting.
It is, because your understanding changes as you grow.
I want to talk about something that probably happens to a lot of viewers. What if you start learning something and then lose motivation?
That happens to everyone. Motivation is not something you have all the time.
So what do you do when motivation disappears?
You rely on routine. You stop asking yourself, do I feel like learning today? And instead ask, what is my daily habit?
That is such an important difference.
Because if you only learn when you feel motivated, you will stop very quickly.
But if learning becomes part of your routine, you keep going even on difficult days.
Exactly. Think about brushing your teeth.
You do not wait until you feel inspired.
Right. You do it because it's part of your routine, and self-education should become like that.
So even if you only read 1 page or listen to 5 minutes of a podcast, you still keep the habit alive.
Exactly. Because missing one day is not the problem. Quitting completely is the problem.
That is such a good message for people who feel like they failed because they missed a day or two.
Missing a day doesn't ruin your progress. The important thing is coming back.
You know, there's also something powerful about learning with other people.
Definitely. When you surround yourself with people who are learning, growing, and improving, it pushes you to do the same.
That's why communities can be so powerful.
Exactly. When you see other people reading, practicing, and challenging themselves, it becomes easier to stay motivated.
That's one reason we love this community here at Talk Easy Daily.
Absolutely. Because everyone watching is trying to improve in some way.
And that creates a really positive environment.
It does. So if you're serious about self-education, try to spend more time around people who inspire you.
Even if it's online.
Exactly. Follow people who teach useful things. Subscribe to channels that help you grow. Listen to podcasts that challenge your thinking.
Because the people around you influence you more than you realize.
They do. If everyone around you complains, avoids growth, and wastes time, it becomes easier to do the same.
But if you're surrounded by people who value learning, you start valuing it too.
Exactly. Your environment shapes your habits.
That's why sometimes the smartest thing you can do is change what you're exposed to every day.
Very true. Even changing the content you watch can change your mindset.
That reminds me of something funny. A lot of people say they want a better life, but they spend all day consuming content that keeps them in the same place.
That is very true. They want confidence, but they only watch entertainment. They want success, but they never study successful people. They want better communication, but they never practice speaking.
So their goals and habits don't match.
Exactly. And if your habits don't match your goals, your life will stay the same.
That is such an important point.
Because your future is not created by what you want, it's created by what you do repeatedly.
Wow, that sounds like something people should write down.
They probably should.
So if someone wants to become more confident, they should study confidence every day.
Exactly. Read about it, watch videos about it, practice it, think about it.
And if someone wants to become better at English, they should make English part of their daily routine.
Right. Listen to English, read English, speak English, build the habit.
Because what you repeat becomes part of you.
Exactly. And eventually, the things that once felt difficult start to feel natural.
I think this is a good moment to ask viewers something again. What is one skill you want to improve this year?
Yes, leave it in the comments, because saying it out loud makes it feel more real.
And who knows, maybe someone else in the comments has the same goal as you.
And if you're enjoying this conversation, don't forget to like this video, because it helps more people find Talk Easy Daily and start building better habits too.
There's also another side of self-education that people don't talk about enough. It can protect you from manipulation.
That is a very important point.
Because if you never learn, you're more likely to believe anything people tell you.
Exactly. Self-education teaches you how to think, not just what to think.
That is such a big difference.
It is. When you learn about psychology, communication, money, media, and human behavior, you become harder to control.
Because you start asking better questions.
Exactly. You stop accepting everything automatically. You become more thoughtful, more independent, and more aware.
That is actually really empowering.
It is. Self-education doesn't just improve your career, it improves your judgment.
And good judgment can save you from so many mistakes.
Absolutely. One good idea can save you years of stress, wasted money, bad relationships, or poor decisions.
Which is another reason why learning is one of the best investments you can make.
Exactly. Because the return on that investment can last for the rest of your life.
And in the next part, we are going to talk about the hidden ways self-education changes your mindset, your identity, and even the people around you.
One of the most interesting things about self-education is that it doesn't only change what you know, it changes who you believe you are.
That sounds deep.
It is, because most people carry around an old identity in their mind.
What do you mean by that?
They keep telling themselves the same story. I am not good at speaking. I am bad with money. I am not confident. I am not smart enough.
And after repeating those thoughts for years, they start believing them.
Exactly. Those thoughts become part of their identity. And once something becomes part of your identity, it becomes very hard to change.
Because you're not just changing a habit, you're changing the way you see yourself.
Right. But self-education slowly breaks those old identities apart.
How?
Imagine someone who always believed they were terrible at communication. Then they start reading about social skills, watching videos about confidence, and practicing speaking every day.
At first, they still probably feel nervous.
Of course, but then something interesting happens. They start having better conversations. They start expressing themselves more clearly. People respond differently to them.
And suddenly they start thinking, maybe I am not bad at communication after all.
Exactly. They begin to build a new identity, not because someone gave it to them, but because they earned it through practice.
That is such an important idea. You don't become confident by waiting to feel confident. You become confident by proving to yourself that you can improve.
Exactly. Confidence is built through evidence.
That is powerful.
Think about someone learning English. At first, they might feel embarrassed every time they speak. They may think, my English is terrible.
I think a lot of viewers can relate to that feeling.
Definitely. But then they keep studying. They keep listening. They keep practicing. And after a few months, they suddenly realize they understand more than before.
Maybe they can watch videos without subtitles. Maybe they can speak without freezing.
Exactly. And in that moment, their identity starts to change. They stop saying, I am bad at English, and start saying, I am becoming someone who speaks English.
That small shift can completely change how someone feels about themselves.
It can, because identity shapes behavior.
Meaning, if you believe you are a learner, you naturally keep learning.
Exactly. If you believe you are disciplined, you naturally act in a more disciplined way. If you believe you are someone who grows, you stop seeing challenges as proof that you are weak.
You start seeing them as proof that you are growing.
Exactly.
I think this is something people need to hear.
just because you have struggled with something for years doesn't mean you are stuck that way forever.
Absolutely. The person you are today is not the final version of you.
That is such a hopeful idea.
It is, and it's true. Most people are far more capable than they realize. They just haven't spent enough time developing themselves yet.
That reminds me of a story.
Go ahead.
I remember hearing about a man who worked the same job for years and always thought he was average. He never saw himself as someone special.
That sounds like a lot of people.
But then one day he started reading books about leadership and communication. He started listening to podcasts during his drive to work. He spent 1 year learning every day.
And what happened?
He became more confident. He started sharing his ideas more at work. Eventually, he got promoted.
But the interesting part is not just that he got promoted. The interesting part is that he completely changed the way he saw himself.
Exactly. Because once you change your self-image, everything else changes too.
It is almost like self-education gives you permission to become someone new.
That is a beautiful way to say it.
And maybe that's why people who learn every day often seem more positive.
That is true.
Because they feel like they're moving forward.
Exactly. There's something powerful about feeling like you're growing. Even if your life is not perfect, growth gives you hope.
Because if you're learning, improving, and becoming stronger, then your future feels brighter.
Right. People often feel depressed or stuck when they feel like nothing is changing.
That makes sense.
But when you're learning every day, you feel progress, and progress creates energy.
Wow, progress creates energy.
It does. Think about how good it feels when you finally understand something that used to confuse you.
That feeling is amazing.
Or when you use a new skill for the first time and realize, I can actually do this.
It gives you momentum.
Exactly. And momentum is one of the most valuable things in life, because once you start moving forward, it becomes easier to keep moving forward.
I think this is why self-education can improve more than just your career or income.
Definitely. It can improve your relationships too.
How?
Because when you learn more about communication, emotions, listening, and human behavior, you become better at dealing with people.
That is true. A lot of relationship problems happen because people don't know how to communicate.
Exactly. They don't know how to listen, express themselves, stay calm, or understand the other person.
But if you educate yourself about those things, your relationships become healthier.
Right. You become more patient, more understanding, and more emotionally intelligent.
That is such an important point, because people often think learning is only about work or money.
But some of the most valuable things you can learn are about life itself.
Like how to handle stress.
Exactly. Or how to build confidence, or how to stop overthinking, or how to communicate better.
Those are the kinds of skills that make everyday life easier.
They really do. And the amazing thing is that once you start learning in one area, it often spreads into other areas.
What do you mean?
Well, imagine someone starts learning about fitness.
Okay.
At first, they just want to get healthier. But then they start learning about discipline, habits, nutrition, sleep, and mindset.
And suddenly they're improving in other areas too.
Exactly. Because growth is contagious.
I love that.
If you improve one area of your life, it often inspires you to improve other areas too.
That's why one small habit can create a huge transformation.
Exactly. One book can lead to a new idea. One idea can lead to a new habit. One habit can lead to a completely different life.
That is such a crazy thing to think about.
It is. And most people never realize how much power they have to change their life because they underestimate the impact of small daily actions.
They think they need one big opportunity.
Right. They think they need a perfect job, a lot of money, or some lucky break.
But often the real breakthrough starts with something much smaller.
Exactly. A book, a conversation, a podcast, a decision.
That is really inspiring because it means anyone can start.
Anyone can, no matter where you live, how old you are, or how many mistakes you made in the past.
And you don't need permission.
Exactly. You don't need someone to tell you that you're ready. You can start today.
That reminds me of another important point. Self-education also changes the people around you.
It definitely does.
Because when you start growing, people notice.
They do. Sometimes your family notices that you're more positive. Your friends notice that you are more confident. Your coworkers notice that you have better ideas.
And sometimes you inspire other people without even realizing it.
Exactly. When people see you reading, learning, improving, and becoming stronger, it makes them think, maybe I can do that too.
That is actually beautiful because your growth can help other people grow.
It can. And that's why improving yourself is not selfish.
That's such an important point because some people feel guilty when they spend time focusing on themselves.
But investing in yourself is one of the best things you can do for the people around you.
Because when you become stronger, calmer, smarter, and more confident,
everyone around you benefits too.
Exactly. You become a better parent, better friend, better partner, better coworker.
And maybe even a better role model.
Definitely, especially for children.
That is true. Children pay attention to what adults do.
They do. If children see adults reading, learning, asking questions, and improving themselves, they learn to value growth too.
But if they only see adults watching television all day and complaining, they learn that too.
Exactly. Your habits teach people more than your words do.
That is such a powerful reminder.
It is. And this is why self-education matters so much. It's not only about what you gain, it's about what you pass on.
You know, there's something else that happens when people start learning every day. They become more interesting.
That is very true.
Because they have more ideas, more stories, more knowledge, and more things to talk about.
Exactly. Have you ever met someone who reads a lot and learns a lot?
Yes, and conversations with them are usually fascinating.
Right, because they can talk about different topics, ask better questions, and connect ideas in interesting ways.
While some people repeat the same conversations every day.
Exactly. Self-education makes your mind richer.
And that can make life more exciting too.
Definitely. Because when you keep learning, the world feels bigger.
There's always something new to discover.
Exactly. You become more curious. You stop feeling bored all the time because you realize there's so much to explore.
That is a great point, because boredom often comes from repeating the same routine without learning anything new.
Very true. But when you're learning, life feels more alive.
I think this is a great moment to ask viewers another question. What is one topic you have become really interested in recently?
Yes, leave it in the comments, because your answer might inspire someone else to explore that topic too.
And if you're enjoying this conversation, subscribe to Talk Easy Daily, because we have so many more episodes about growth, confidence, English, and building a better life.
Because the more you learn, the more possibilities you create for yourself.
And in the next part, we are going to talk about the biggest mistakes people make when trying to educate themselves, and how to avoid wasting time, energy, and motivation.
One of the biggest mistakes people make with self-education is confusing information with transformation.
That is such a good point, because a lot of people consume information all day but never actually change.
Exactly. They watch videos, read quotes, listen to podcasts, and save posts online, but they never apply anything.
So they feel productive, but nothing in their life really improves.
Right. It's like reading 10 books about fitness, but never exercising.
You might know a lot about fitness, but your body won't change.
Exactly. Knowledge only becomes valuable when you use it.
That is such an important reminder, because it's very easy to become addicted to learning without action.
It is. People love the feeling of discovering new ideas because it feels exciting.
But the hard part is actually doing something with those ideas.
Right. And that's where real growth happens.
So if someone reads about waking up earlier, they should actually try waking up earlier.
Exactly. If you learn about confidence, practice speaking up. If you learn about money, make a budget. If you learn about communication, start using better questions in conversations.
Because action is what turns information into results.
Exactly. And here's another mistake people make. They jump from topic to topic too quickly.
That happens all the time.
One day they want to learn about business, the next day they want to learn about psychology, then fitness, then productivity, then investing.
And because they keep changing direction, they never go deep into anything.
Exactly. They stay busy, but they don't build real knowledge.
So what is the better approach?
Focus on one area for a while. Stay with it long enough to understand it, practice it, and actually improve.
That makes sense, because if you keep switching topics, your mind gets scattered.
Exactly. Think of it like digging a well.
Okay.
If you dig one small hole in 10 different places, you never reach water.
But if you keep digging in one place, eventually you go deep enough.
Exactly. Self-education works the same way. Depth creates results.
That is such a powerful example.
Another mistake people make is choosing learning that feels easy instead of learning that is useful.
What do you mean?
Well, people often choose content that is entertaining, simple, and comfortable.
Because it feels good.
Exactly. But the most useful lessons are often uncomfortable at first.
That is true. Learning about your weaknesses is not always fun.
No, but it is necessary. If you're bad with money, you need to learn about money. If you struggle with confidence, you need to face that. If you have trouble communicating, you need to work on communication.
So instead of always learning what is easy, learn what is needed.
Exactly. Ask yourself, what skill would improve my life the most right now?
That is a really important question.
Because the answer usually tells you where you need to focus.
I think another mistake people make is expecting to feel motivated every day.
Absolutely. People think successful learners wake up every morning feeling excited to read and study.
But that's not true.
Not at all. Even the most disciplined people have days when they don't feel like learning.
So what makes them different?
They do it anyway.
That is the difference.
Exactly.
They understand that growth is not about mood, it is about commitment.
Wow. Growth is not about mood. It is about commitment.
Because if you only learn when you feel motivated, you will probably quit as soon as life gets busy.
But if learning becomes part of your identity, you keep going no matter what.
Exactly. You become the kind of person who learns, even on difficult days.
I think that's one of the biggest differences between people who improve and people who stay stuck.
Definitely. The people who improve are not always smarter. They are just more consistent.
That's encouraging because consistency is something anyone can build.
Exactly. You don't need to be a genius. You just need to keep showing up.
Another mistake people make is comparing themselves to others.
That is a huge one.
Because someone might see another person speaking perfect English, making a lot of money, or reading 50 books a year and think, I will never be like that.
Exactly. But what they don't see is the years of effort behind that progress.
They only see the result.
Right. And comparison can become very dangerous because it makes you focus on someone else's journey instead of your own.
So instead of comparing yourself to other people, compare yourself to who you were 6 months ago.
Exactly. Ask yourself, am I improving? That's the only comparison that really matters.
Because if you're growing, even slowly, you're moving in the right direction.
Exactly. Slow progress is still progress.
I think that's something people need to hear more often.
Definitely. Because many people quit too early.
They expect to see huge results in a short time.
Exactly. But real self-education is more like building a house.
One brick at a time.
Exactly. One page, one lesson, one habit, one conversation.
And eventually, all those small pieces become something big.
Right. But if you quit too early, you never get to see what you were building.
That's such a good reminder.
Another mistake people make is learning passively.
What does that mean?
It means they consume information without really thinking about it.
So they listen, but they don't reflect.
Exactly. They hear something useful and immediately move on to the next thing.
But they never stop to ask themselves, how does this apply to my life?
Right. Real learning happens when you connect information to your own experiences.
That makes sense because ideas become more powerful when they feel personal.
Exactly. If you hear advice about confidence, think about where you need more confidence in your life.
If you hear advice about discipline, think about the habits you need to improve.
Right. The more personal the lesson becomes, the more likely you are to remember it.
I think journaling can help with that too.
Definitely. Writing down your thoughts helps you understand yourself better.
And it forces you to slow down and think.
Exactly. Sometimes people consume so much information that they never stop to process it.
So they know a little about everything, but they don't really understand themselves.
Right. But journaling helps you turn ideas into personal insight.
That's such a useful habit.
It really is. Even writing for 5 minutes a day can help you become more aware of your patterns, habits, goals, and emotions.
Another mistake people make is trying to learn alone all the time.
That's true.
Because sometimes you need feedback.
Exactly. You can read about communication all day, but at some point you need to practice with real people.
You can study English by yourself, but eventually you need to speak it.
Right. Learning becomes much more powerful when you interact with others.
Because other people can help you see things you can't see by yourself.
Exactly. They can correct you, encourage you, challenge you, and push you to improve.
That's why communities, mentors, and friends can be so valuable.
Definitely. You don't have to do everything alone.
And honestly, learning with other people can make the process more fun too.
It can. Growth becomes easier when you are surrounded by people who are also trying to grow.
That's another reason why the Talk Easy Daily community is so special.
Absolutely. Because everyone here is trying to become better in some way.
And when you're surrounded by that kind of energy, it motivates you.
Exactly. Success leaves clues, and being around growth-minded people helps you see those clues more clearly.
I want to talk about another mistake that people don't realize they are making.
Go ahead.
Sometimes people spend so much time preparing to learn that they never actually begin.
That is very true.
They keep looking for the perfect book, the perfect course, the perfect notebook, the perfect time.
And while they're waiting for perfect conditions, months pass.
Exactly, but perfect conditions never come.
They don't. At some point, you have to stop preparing and start doing.
That's such a good point, because action creates clarity.
Exactly. You don't need to know everything before you begin. You learn by starting.
That reminds me of people who want to speak English perfectly before they start speaking.
Exactly. But you don't become good at speaking by waiting. You become good by speaking badly at first and improving over time.
That's uncomfortable, but it's true.
Growth is often uncomfortable, but discomfort is not a sign that you are failing.
It is a sign that you are stretching yourself.
Exactly. And that is where real change happens.
I think this is a good moment to ask viewers something important.
What is one thing you have been wanting to learn but keep putting off?
Yes, write it in the comments. Sometimes saying it out loud is the first step toward finally starting.
And maybe today is the day you stop waiting.
Because your future doesn't change when you think about changing. It changes when you take action.
That is powerful.
It is true. Every day you wait is another day you could have been improving.
But the good news is that it is never too late to begin.
Exactly. Whether you are 18 or 80, you can still learn. You can still grow. You can still become someone stronger and wiser than you are today.
And honestly, that's one of the most hopeful things about life.
It really is. As long as you are alive, you still have the ability to change.
And in the next part, we are going to talk about real-life examples of people who transformed their lives through daily self-education and what you can learn from their stories.
There are so many powerful examples of people who changed their lives through self-education. And one of the most inspiring things is that many of them didn't start with special advantages.
That's important because a lot of people think successful people were just born smarter, richer, or luckier.
But in reality, many successful people started with very little. What made them different was that they kept learning.
I think that gives people hope because it means you don't have to start perfectly.
Exactly. Let's talk about someone many people know. Oprah Winfrey.
She had a really difficult childhood.
She did. She grew up in poverty, faced many challenges, and had every reason to believe that life would stay difficult forever.
But she kept learning.
Exactly. She read constantly. She became curious about people, emotions, communication, and personal growth.
And eventually, that knowledge helped her become one of the most successful and influential women in the world.
Right. She didn't just rely on talent. She educated herself continuously.
That's such a good reminder because people often see success but forget about the years of learning behind it.
Exactly. Let's take another example. Elon Musk.
A lot of people know him as the man behind Tesla and SpaceX.
Right. But what many people don't realize is that he learned about rockets mostly by reading books.
That still sounds crazy to me.
It does sound crazy, but it shows the power of curiosity. He didn't say, "I'm not an expert, so I can't learn this." He decided to study until he understood it.
That is such a powerful mindset.
It is. Instead of seeing lack of knowledge as a wall, he saw it as something he could overcome.
I think that's a lesson all of us can use in our own lives.
Definitely. If there's something you don't know, that's not a reason to stop. It's a reason to start learning.
That is a really important mindset shift.
Another great example is Warren Buffett.
He's famous for reading all the time.
Exactly. He spends hours every day reading reports, books, articles, and business information.
Even after becoming successful.
Especially after becoming successful. That's what's interesting. The most successful people often keep learning more than everyone else.
Because they understand that learning never ends.
Exactly. They don't think, "I know enough now." They keep growing because they know the world keeps changing.
That is such a powerful habit.
It really is. And here's something interesting. A lot of these people are not naturally more disciplined than everyone else.
Really?
Not always. They just understand the value of learning, so they make it a priority.
That's encouraging because discipline is something you can build.
Exactly. You don't need to wake up one day feeling like a completely different person. You just need to start creating small habits.
I think everyday people can be even more inspiring than famous people sometimes.
I agree, because their stories feel closer to our own lives.
I remember hearing about a woman who wanted to change careers in her 30s.
That can feel scary for a lot of people.
It can. She had been working in the same job for years, but she wanted something better.
So what did she do?
She started learning online every night. She watched videos, took courses, read articles, and practiced new skills for 1 hour every day. That is amazing. And after about a year, she had enough knowledge to apply for a new job in a completely different field. That is such a powerful example, because it shows that 1 hour a day can completely change your future. Exactly. Imagine if she had spent that hour every day just watching random videos online. Her life probably would have stayed exactly the same. But because she used that hour intentionally, everything changed. That is such an important lesson. The way you spend your free time often determines your future. Wow, that is so true. Most people think their future is decided by big moments, but often it is decided by what they do in the small moments, like what they do after work. Exactly. Or before bed, or during lunch, or while driving. Because those little pieces of time add up. They do. And if you use those moments to learn instead of just escape, your life can start moving in a completely different direction. I think another inspiring story is people who teach themselves English. Definitely. That takes a lot of effort and consistency, especially because learning a language can feel so slow in the beginning. It can.
At first, you feel like you are forgetting words, making mistakes, and not improving. But then one day you realize you understand a full conversation. Exactly. Or you watch a movie without subtitles. Or you speak to someone without feeling nervous. And that moment feels amazing because you realize all those small daily efforts were worth it. Right. That is one of the most beautiful things about self-education. You may not see progress every day, but one day you suddenly realize how far you have come. That must be such a satisfying feeling. It really is. And it proves something important. Your daily habits are always working, even when you cannot see it. That is such a powerful reminder for anyone who feels discouraged right now. Because if you keep going, your progress will eventually become visible. You know, there's another type of story that inspires me. What is that? People who use self-education to break family patterns. That is a really powerful topic. Because sometimes people grow up around negativity, unhealthy habits, bad money decisions, or poor communication. And they think that is normal because it's all they have seen. Exactly. But then they start learning. They read about relationships, they learn about money, they study confidence and emotional control. And little by little, they create a different future for themselves. Yes. They become the first person in their family to think differently. That takes a lot of courage. It does. Because sometimes when you start changing, the people around you do not understand. That is true. Sometimes people around you may even make fun of you. They might say things like, "Why are you reading so much?" or "Why are you trying so hard?" Exactly. Because when you change, it can make other people uncomfortable. That is such an important point. It is. Not everyone will support your growth at first. But that does not mean you should stop. Definitely not. Sometimes growth feels lonely in the beginning because you are becoming someone new. Exactly. And not everyone will understand that journey. But eventually, the results speak for themselves. They do. When people see that you are more confident, calmer, smarter, and more successful, they start to understand. And sometimes they even become inspired by you. Exactly. Your growth can give other people permission to grow too. That is such a beautiful thought. It really is. And this is why you should never be ashamed of wanting more for your life. That is such an important message. Wanting to learn, improve, and grow is not something to feel guilty about. It is something to be proud of. Exactly. Because so many people stay stuck in the same patterns for years. But you do not have to. No, you do not. You have the ability to change your future one small habit at a time. I think this is a great moment to ask viewers something again. Has there ever been a book, podcast, or lesson that completely changed the way you think? Yes, leave it in the comments because your story could inspire someone else. And if someone has not found that life-changing lesson yet, maybe this episode will be the beginning. Maybe it will. Sometimes one conversation can change the direction of your entire life. That is such a powerful thing to think about. It is. Because every new idea gives you a chance to see yourself differently. And once you see yourself differently, you start making different choices. Exactly. You stop settling, you stop doubting yourself so much. You stop believing that your current situation is permanent because you realize that change is possible. Exactly. And when you truly believe change is possible, everything becomes different. You know what I love most about self-education? What? It gives people hope. That is so true. Because even if someone feels behind in life, they can still start learning. Exactly. They can still start building skills, changing habits, and improving themselves. And that means their future does not have to look like their past. Right. Your past may explain you, but it doesn't have to define you. That line is beautiful. It is true. No matter what happened before, you still have the ability to grow. And growth is one of the most exciting things in life. Definitely. Because there's something magical about realizing you are becoming someone stronger than you used to be. And in the next part, we are going to go even deeper into the advanced lessons of self-education, including how to think better, learn faster, and make sure your growth lasts for life. One of the most advanced lessons in self-education is understanding that learning faster is not always the goal. Really? That sounds surprising because everyone wants to learn faster. That's true. But sometimes people become so obsessed with speed that they forget to actually understand what they are learning. So they rush through books, videos, and courses just to say they finished them. Exactly. But finishing something is not the same as mastering it. That is such a good point. Think about someone reading 10 books very quickly, okay? If they forget everything they read, those books don't help much. But if someone reads one book slowly, takes notes, reflects, and applies the ideas, that one book could change their life. Exactly. Real learning is not about how much information you consume. It is about how much information becomes part of you. That is powerful. One of the best ways to make learning stick is to teach what you learn. That is true. People always say you understand something better when you explain it to someone else. Exactly. Because when you teach, you realize very quickly what you understand and what you don't. So if someone is learning English, they can try explaining new words or grammar to a friend. Right. Or if you are learning about confidence, try sharing the ideas with someone else. Because teaching forces you to organize your thoughts. Exactly.
and it makes the information stay in your memory much longer. That is such a useful tip. Another advanced lesson is that your environment matters more than your motivation. We talked a little about that before, but this is so important. It really is. Imagine you are trying to read more books, but your phone is always next to you. That is dangerous. Exactly. Every notification pulls your attention away, so even if you are motivated, your environment makes it harder. Right. But if you put your phone in another room, keep a book on your desk, and create a quiet space for learning, it becomes much easier. So instead of depending on willpower, you design your environment to help you succeed. Exactly. Successful people don't always have more discipline. They often have better systems. That is such a smart way to think about it. For example, if you want to improve your English, change your environment. How? Listen to English podcasts. Change your phone language to English. Watch videos in English. Follow English-speaking creators. So your environment starts teaching you automatically. Exactly. The more you surround yourself with something, the faster it becomes normal to you. That is why people improve so quickly when they move to another country. Right. Their environment forces them to learn. But even if you don't move, you can still create that kind of environment for yourself. Exactly. And that is a huge advantage. I think another advanced lesson is learning how to ask better questions. That is one of the most important skills in life, because the quality of your answers depends on the quality of your questions. Exactly. A weak question sounds like, why am I so bad at this? And that question makes you feel worse. Right. But a better question is, what can I do to improve? That feels much more useful. Exactly. Or instead of asking, why is my life so difficult? Ask, what is this situation trying to teach me?
Wow, that changes everything.
It really does. Better questions create better thinking.
And better thinking creates better decisions.
Exactly. One of the biggest differences between people who grow and people who stay stuck is the questions they ask themselves every day.
That is such an important insight.
It is. People who grow ask things like, how can I improve? What can I learn from this? What skill would make my life better?
While people who stay stuck often ask questions that make them feel powerless.
Exactly. Questions like, why does this always happen to me? Or, why am I not good enough?
And those questions keep them trapped.
Right. That is why self-education is not only about learning facts, it is about learning how to think.
That might be the most important lesson of all.
I think it is. Because once you learn how to think clearly, you make better choices in every part of your life.
Better choices with money.
Better choices with relationships.
Better choices with time.
Better choices with your future.
Another advanced lesson is understanding that not every opinion deserves your attention.
That is so important today, because there are opinions everywhere.
Especially online.
Exactly. One person says one thing, another person says the opposite, and suddenly you feel confused.
So how do you know what advice to trust?
Ask yourself a simple question. Does this person have the kind of life or results I want?
That is a really smart filter.
Because if someone gives advice about money, but they are terrible with money, maybe you should not listen.
Or if someone gives advice about relationships, but their relationships are a mess.
Exactly. Not every opinion deserves equal value.
That is actually such a freeing idea because it means you don't have to listen to everyone.
You really don't. Protecting your mind is one of the most important parts of self-education.
Because if you let too many negative opinions into your mind, they can stop you from growing.
Exactly. Some people will tell you your goals are unrealistic.
Some people will laugh at you.
Some people will say you're wasting your time.
But often those people are speaking from their own fears.
Exactly. And if you listen to people who gave up on themselves, you may end up giving up on yourself too.
That's such an important warning.
It is. Be careful who you allow to influence your thinking.
Because the voices around you eventually become the voice inside your head.
Exactly. That is why you should spend more time around people, books, and ideas that make you stronger.
I think another important lesson is that growth can feel lonely sometimes.
Definitely.
Because when you start changing, not everyone around you changes with you.
That is true. Sometimes you stop enjoying the same conversations. Sometimes you stop wanting to waste time the way you used to.
And that can make you feel different from the people around you.
Exactly. But that does not mean you are doing something wrong.
It might actually mean you are growing.
Right. Growth often creates distance before it creates connection.
That is deep.
Because when you become a different person, you may need different habits, different goals, and sometimes even different people around you.
That can be hard.
It can. But it is part of becoming who you are meant to be.
I think that's something people need to hear because growth is not always comfortable.
No, it is not. Sometimes growth means saying no to people. Sometimes it means spending more time alone. Sometimes it means feeling misunderstood for a while.
But in the end, it's worth it.
Absolutely. Because becoming a stronger version of yourself is always worth it.
There's another advanced lesson that I love.
What is it?
The idea that you don't need to know exactly where you are going before you start.
That's such an important point.
Because a lot of people wait until they have the perfect plan.
But life doesn't work that way.
Exactly. Sometimes you only discover what you love by trying different things.
Right. Maybe you start learning English and then become interested in travel.
Or maybe you start reading about business and realize you love marketing.
Exactly. One interest often leads to another.
So you don't need to have your whole future figured out.
Not at all. You just need to stay curious and keep moving forward.
Because action creates direction.
Exactly. The more you learn, the more opportunities you see.
And the more opportunities you see, the more choices you have.
That is why self-education is so powerful. It gives you more options.
More options in work.
More options in relationships.
More options in life.
Exactly. And when you have more options, you feel more free.
That's such a beautiful way to think about it.
It is true. Learning gives you freedom because it gives you the ability to adapt, change, and create a different future.
I think this is a great moment to ask viewers another question. What is one thing you have learned recently that made you see life differently?
Yes, leave it in the comments because your insight might help someone else.
And if you've been enjoying this conversation, make sure you subscribe to Talk Easy Daily because we are just getting started.
Because in the next and final part, we are going to recap everything we talked about and leave you with one message that could completely change the way you approach your future. If there is one thing we want you to remember from this entire conversation, it is this. Your life can change dramatically when you start learning every day.
Because self-education is not just about getting smarter.
Exactly. It is about becoming stronger, more confident, more capable, and more aware of what's possible for your future.
We talked about how daily learning changes your habits.
We talked about how it changes your mindset.
We talked about how it changes your identity.
And we talked about how even 10 or 15 minutes a day can create huge results over time.
Because small actions may not feel powerful in the moment, but when you repeat them every day, they completely change who you become.
Exactly. Reading 10 pages a day doesn't seem like much.
Listening to one podcast episode doesn't seem life-changing.
Watching one educational video doesn't seem like a big deal.
But when you do those things every day for months or years, they become part of you.
And eventually you realize that you think differently.
You speak differently.
You make better decisions.
You stop doubting yourself so much.
You stop feeling stuck.
And you start seeing possibilities where you used to see limits.
That is the real power of self-education. It changes the way you see yourself and the way you see the world.
We also talked about how growth is not always easy.
Right. Sometimes it feels slow.
Sometimes it feels uncomfortable.
Sometimes it feels lonely.
But that doesn't mean it's not working.
Exactly. Growth often feels invisible before it becomes obvious.
So if you've been learning something recently and feel like you're not making progress, don't give up. Because one day you're going to look back and realize how far you've come. You're going to realize that the small habits you almost ignored were actually changing your life. We also talked about how self-education is one of the best investments you can make. Because money can disappear, jobs can change, opportunities can come and go. But what you learn stays with you. Nobody can take away your knowledge, your skills, your experiences, or your ability to keep growing. And maybe that is why self-education is so powerful. It gives you something permanent in a world that changes all the time. It gives you confidence because you know you can adapt.
It gives you freedom because you have more options.
And it gives you hope because you know your future is not fixed.
That is such an important message.
Because there are probably people watching this right now who feel behind in life.
People who feel like they miss too many chances.
People who feel like they are too old, too busy, or too stuck to change.
But none of that is true.
Because as long as you are alive, you can still learn.
You can still improve.
You can still build better habits.
You can still create a different future.
And that future starts with one small decision.
One book.
One lesson.
One podcast.
One conversation.
One habit repeated every day.
So after this video ends, don't just feel inspired for 5 minutes and then forget everything.
Choose one thing you want to learn.
Choose one habit you want to build.
Choose one area of your life you want to improve.
And start today.
Because 6 months from now, you could be more confident,
More skilled.
more disciplined,
More successful.
more fluent in English.
More proud of yourself.
But only if you begin. That is the difference between people who stay the same and people who transform their lives.
The people who transform their lives don't wait for the perfect time. They start before they feel ready.
They stay consistent,
They keep learning.
and little by little, they become someone new.
If this conversation helped you, let us know in the comments what one thing you are going to start learning after today.
And if you made it all the way to the end, comment the word growth so we know you're serious about becoming a better version of yourself.
And of course, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs motivation, and subscribe to Talk Easy Daily for more conversations that help you grow your English, your confidence, and your mindset.
Because your future is being shaped by what you do every day. And every day is another chance to become the person you want to be.
We will see you in the next episode.
And until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep believing in yourself.